Did you know that more CHamorus live in the States than in the Marianas? For CHamorus, this journey is much more than just migration. It's a story of survival, resilience, and the assertion of our culture and identity in a new land. Si Pulan, and in this video, we'll uncover the history behind the CHamorus migration to the States, exploring the forces that pushed our people to leave, and the ties that still connect us to our islands. CHamorus migration to the States dates back to the 19th century during the Spanish era, where a small number of CHamorus began leaving the islands, primarily working as whalers. By 1886, the Spanish governor Olive reported that approximately 800 CHamorus were working in Honolulu, Hawaii. It's unknown how many of them stayed off-island permanently, but it was likely not a significant number. At the turn of the century, as a result of the Spanish-American War, the colonial powers shifted. Guam became an American territory, and the Northern Marianas came under German rule. Guam's first American naval administration, or pre-war administration, opened new opportunities for migration, primarily through education and military service. Around 80 CHamorus, largely from wealthier families, pursued education in the States, but of those 80, only 25 returned. While CHamorus were largely excluded from U.S. military service, a few managed to enlist during certain years, such as in 1912 and during World War I. A 1926 census by Gertrude Hornbustle estimated that of 19,030 CHamorus, 309 were living abroad. It wasn't until 1937 that CHamorus were allowed to join the U.S. military in larger numbers, although their roles were limited to the mess attendant rank, alongside minorities such as Black Americans and Filipinos. Despite these limitations, military enlistment for CHamorus became highly sought after. Between 1937 and the outbreak of World War II, 625 young CHamorus men departed Guam to serve in the Navy, with some choosing to permanently stay near their naval bases, such as in San Diego. Despite some early migration during the pre-war naval administration, most CHamorus remained in the Marianas as they lived off of the land in a subsistence-based society with little pressure to leave. However, everything changed with World War II. The war brought widespread devastation to Guam, with nearly every village destroyed, except for 3 in the south. The war not only ruined much of Guam's fertile land, but also led to large portions being seized by the U.S. military, making it difficult for CHamorus to sustain themselves through agriculture as they had before. For survival in a post-war devastated Guam, CHamorus were pressured to adopt the new lifestyle and wage economy brought by Americanization. The island was rebuilt primarily for U.S. military needs, leaving CHamorus unable to rely on their traditional way of life, which facilitated the transition from a subsistence-based economy to a wage-based economy. This shift introduced new challenges, including discriminatory practices against CHamorus laborers. Many CHamorus lost their land to U.S. military land seizure policies, around 1,350 families by 1947, further pushing CHamorus to work for wage employment or join the military. A new education system also emerged, prompting many CHamorus to seek higher education opportunities in the States. Militarization further transformed island life. All of these factors, shaped by U.S. policy, created environments that pressured CHamorus to migrate to the States for military service, education, and economic opportunities. Similar to today, CHamorus at the time faced limited choices. If you didn't go to college after high school, you either joined the military or get a civil government job. The 1950 Organic Act of Guam, which granted U.S. citizenship to CHamorus, and the implementation of selective service for Guam in 1951 at the beginning of the Korean War, spurred an unprecedented wave of migration, especially through military service. Between 1951 and 1971, 2,591 men were inducted. In 1971, it was reported that there were 3,270 CHamorus in the armed forces. And it wasn't as if CHamorus were not willing to join the military. Military recruiters on Guam reported that their quotas were always filled, sometimes doubling or tripling their quotas. CHamorus eagerly enlisted and were stationed near major U.S. military bases, particularly in places like San Diego, Vallejo, Alameda, and Long Beach. Rather than returning to Guam after their service, many Chamorros chose to settle in these areas permanently, and they of course brought their spouses and children with them, starting a chain migration. Relatives, parents, siblings, and cousins often followed, establishing Chamorro communities across the states. Chamorro migration to the States and other parts of the world became so closely tied to military service that by 1979, a report estimated that 3/4 of all Chamorros living off-island were either actively serving or had a military affiliation. In this way, the U.S. military became a key driver of Chamorro migration, serving as both a pathway and catalyst for relocation to the States. It wasn't just through military service that Chamorros left, but for social and economic reasons. As mentioned already, Guam significantly changed after the war, and it became difficult for Chamorros to rely on traditional agricultural life when the island was heavily militarized, leading to participation in the wage economy through employment, through civil government jobs, or the emerging private sector as the leading non-military way of making a living. And mobility in this wage economy required formal education. With a Chamorro population boom after the war and an emphasis on education, there was a record amount of Chamorros in high school, but with not enough jobs available on the island. Chamorros were pressured to migrate to the States for job opportunities. Furthermore, children, for much of their early formative period of life, were prohibited from speaking Chamorro at school and taught by typically white teachers to be forward-looking and to view the States as the ultimate ideal. So it is no wonder why so many Chamorros seek to live in the States. Higher education also became a significant factor for migration. With the rise of a wage economy and the availability of scholarships, financial aid, GI Bill, more Chamorros could attend or could afford to send their children to colleges in the States. This shift marked a departure from the pre-war era when usually wealthier families had the resources to do so. One major factor that triggered a wave of Chamorro migration was the lifting of Guam's security clearance in 1962. This, combined with the rise of affordable commercial air travel, which made it possible to reach California in under a day, made migration more accessible than ever before. Natural disasters also contributed to this migration. After Typhoon Karen devastated Guam in 1962, destroying 9 out of 10 buildings, many Chamorros left the island for the States, aided by the availability of affordable flights. Economic recessions, like the one in the mid-1970s, further fueled migration as Chamorros sought better job opportunities and greater economic stability in the States. Some Chamorro families migrated through a unique form of chain migration, often referred to as Chamorro prison migration. When Chamorros were incarcerated in stateside prisons, their families frequently relocated nearby to provide support during their sentences. In many cases, these families chose to remain in the States, even after their loved ones were released. Additionally, some Chamorros migrated to escape addiction problems and crime in the Marianas, while others moved to the States seeking better health care. In 1975, the covenant to establish the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, CNMI, was negotiated and approved by the people of the Northern Marianas, officially coming into full effect in 1986. This granted U.S. citizenship to Chamorros in the CNMI, sparking a new wave of migration to the States, similar to the earlier movement from Guam. Many Chamorros from the CNMI sought the same opportunities, education, employment, and economic stability that had driven migration from Guam. By the time of the 1980 U.S. Census, there were 32,123 Chamorros living in the States, a number that closely rivaled the 47,690 Chamorros on Guam and the 6,667 in the CNMI. This marked a significant shift as more Chamorros began building lives in the States, contributing to the growing diaspora. By 2020, the Chamorro population in the States had significantly increased. According to the U.S. Census, 70,704 people identified as Chamorro alone, while an additional 73,243 identified as Chamorro in combination with another ethnicity, bringing the total to 143,947 Chamorros living in the States. In comparison, Guam's 2020 census recorded 50,420 people identifying as Chamorro alone, or 63,035 when including those who identified as Chamorro alongside another ethnicity. In the CNMI, 12,001 people identified solely as Chamorro, with 17,163 identifying as Chamorro alone or in combination. These figures clearly demonstrate that more Chamorros now live in the States than in the Marianas. San Diego County, California, became home to the largest Chamorro population in the States, with 9,391 Chamorros living there as of 2020. According to the 2010 census, the 5 U.S. states with the largest Chamorro populations in order are California, Washington, Texas, Hawaii, and Florida. Chamorros in the states stayed deeply connected through strong social and cultural ties, maintaining relationships with extended family and friends. As the Chamorro population continues to grow in the states, Chamorro organizations began to form, such as the Sons and Daughters of Guam Club in San Diego, helping Chamorros perpetuate their cultural identity and maintaining connections to their home islands, while helping to adjust Chamorros to life in the States. Chamorros have established vibrant communities that balance perpetuating cultural heritage while adapting to American life. These communities serve as hubs for maintaining traditions like language, food, and social customs. These Chamorro organizations play a crucial role in promoting cultural awareness and education, especially for younger generations growing up in the States. They host cultural events, language classes, and social gatherings, strengthening Chamorro identity even as the community adapts to life in the States. For example, Chamorro Hands in Education links Unity, Tsetlu, a nonprofit organization, organizes the Chamorro Cultural Festival, CCF, to coincide with Chamorro Month in Guam. With thousands of Chamorros pouring into San Diego from all over, including some from the Marianas, this festival has become one of the largest Chamorro cultural events in the States, highlighting the enduring connection Chamorros in the States have with their heritage. Chamorros in the States never lost touch with their islands and families. They kept in touch through letters, phone calls, the news, and now social media, ensuring that even as they adapted to life in new environments, their ties to their roots remained strong. Chamorros in the Diaspora actively maintain these bonds, often traveling back and forth between the States and the Marianas for important life events, such as the passing of a family member or a wedding. The journey back also serves as a way to reconnect and renew their deep cultural and ancestral ties to their home islands. Younger generations born and raised in the States often face challenges in connecting with their roots, lacking resources to learn about their heritage, and sometimes even being mistaken for other ethnic groups or cultural groups, such as Mexican or Hispanic. For many in the diaspora, especially those who left the islands at a young age or were born and raised entirely in the States, returning to the Marianas can be both joyous and conflicting. The experience often evokes joy, reconnecting with family and visiting cultural landmarks. However, after years of absence, some may romanticize their homeland, imagining it as an idyllic paradise. The reality of modernization, development, and cultural shifts can challenge the romanticized and nostalgic images they've held, leading to a sense of disconnection. The island they longed for may no longer exist as they imagined or remembered. Yet these journeys remain deeply meaningful, often sparking a renewed connection to their roots and prompting a rearticulation of what home truly means. Despite these challenges, Chamorro identity in the diaspora remains strong, evolving with each generation without losing its deep ties to the Marianas. Chamorros living in the States are no less Chamorro than those on the home islands. Indigenous identity is not limited by geography. In Indigenous studies, the concepts of roots and routes offers a lens to explore Chamorro identity in the diaspora. Roots refer to one's ancestral homeland, cultural heritage, and origin, deeply connected to the land and traditions of the Chamorro people. Roots are deeply vertical. Routes refer to the journeys, migrations, and movements of Chamorros across different places through time. Roots and routes are not mutually exclusive. This framework emphasizes that Indigenous identity is not static or confined to one place, but mobile. It evolves through journeys and interactions with places and people. This Indigenous mobility challenges the stereotype that Indigenous peoples are static or tied solely to one area. Indigenous communities, especially those with a strong seafaring heritage, including CHamorus, have long histories of movement for trade and migration long before colonial borders were established. The pre-colonial CHamorus used the ocean as their highway. While planes have replaced canoes, the concept remains the same. Movement is an intrinsic part of the CHamoru experience and identity. Their identity is shaped not only by their roots in the Marianas, but also by their routes, the experiences and transformations that come from migration, travel, and life in a new environment. Today, indigenous mobility extends to diaspora experiences, urban migration, and navigating identity across multiple locations. Whether through language, food, family ties, or cultural practices, CHamorus in the diaspora continue to honor their heritage and maintain a strong sense of community. Distance from the islands does not necessarily diminish their connection to their roots. Rather, it demonstrates the resilience of an indigenous identity that adapts and thrives no matter where they are. In conclusion, the journey of CHamoru migration to the States is a story of resilience, adaptation, and enduring cultural pride. More than just a physical journey, it reflects the survival of a people navigating new environments while maintaining deep ties to their heritage. From the early days as whalers to the waves brought on by military service, war, economic recessions, natural disasters, and educational opportunities, CHamorus have forged new lives of the States and other distant lands while maintaining connections to their Marianas homeland. Today, vibrant CHamoru communities in the States continue to honor their heritage through cultural events, language, and social ties, ensuring that future generations remain connected to their roots, regardless of geography. The CHamoru diaspora serves as a testament to the enduring strength of identity, proving that even across great distances, a deep sense of community, culture, and pride can thrive. No matter where our people are, our identity endures, strengthened by both our roots in the Marianas and our routes across the world. If you liked and enjoyed the video, consider supporting me on Patreon so I can continue to produce more Pacific Studies content. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on all notifications, follow me on social media at PulanSpeaks. And a special Zeus Masi to Patreon supporters Puti'on, Dylan Sablan, Jesse Babauta, and Athena-nike. Zeus Masi for watching, Guahusi Pulan, and Pulan has spoken. Esta.